Okay, today we're going to learn how to make a short cinematic title animation sequence, just like the one you're seeing right now on screen, using a couple of simple things: opacity, Gaussian blur, some simple keyframing, and then at the end we will go into the details of how you can actually export those settings and have it so you can reuse it again and again. So let's just get started. Okay, here we are in our project window. I've got a clip dropped in here already, just a forest flyover, just to give us something to drop our text onto. So the first thing we want to do is create a new text layer. So Essential Graphics, Edit, and in this icon here for New Layer, Text. Now you can also create text by pressing T on your keyboard and clicking anywhere in the window, or clicking the T down here from the tool. If Essential Graphics isn't shown, go to Windows and select Essential Graphics from there. Same with all these others. You can open any of them with that. So we go in here, we can change our font, we can change our sizing, change our letters, coloring, drop a bit of shadow on it, all sorts of fun things. So let's click and drag, pull that over a tiny bit, call it whatever it is you're going to call it. Nice and original. If you are going to change the spacing between the letters, it's best to not select the last letter, because the space that's added will go on the right hand side of the letters. So if you put all of them, this will create an empty space here in the end of this box hole and throw off your alignment for centering. So it's maybe a bit small for that. We'll go 350. Align and transform, center, vertical and horizontal. And yeah, okay, so that's our text pretty much fine. I'm just going to drag this just so they're both the same length, just OCD. Right, so we've got our title there, and if we go back down to our timeline here and hit play, you can see the sequence just has the title, and that's it. So we want to do a little bit more. So pull your scrubber in a tiny bit, make sure your title, your text layer is selected, and we're going to go up here to effects, and in the search bar we're firstly going to search for blur, and we're looking for Gaussian blur, however you want to pronounce it. So we'll select Gaussian blur, text layer is still selected, and this little stopwatch toggle animation, we want to click that about half a second or so into the clip. Drag this scrubber all the way back to the start, and in this circle we'll add or remove keyframes. So if we go over here and we click this while we're on a keyframe, it'll get rid of it, click it and put it back. So we want to leave this blurriness as 0, because the way it looks right now is with 0 blurriness, and that's how we want it to be. Go to the start of the clip and we can increase this. That's really up to you, personal preference, whether you want to go for a slight subtle kind of blurring, or you want to go really extreme and almost have it like a fog kind of dropping in. I'm going to go for about maybe 75, I think, just for a slightly more subtle. These arrows also help you jump back and forwards between your keyframes. So then we're going to go down here to opacity. Same again, click the stopwatch, create a keyframe, go back to the start of the clip and create a keyframe here on opacity, and this time we're going to drop the value right down to 0. So now we can't see it. So now if we hit play, we can see it slowly fit in. Now that might be happening a bit quick or not quick enough, whatever it is you want to do, you can just fiddle about. The space between your keyframes is how long it's going to take for the event to actually happen. So if you move them really close together, it'll be almost instant, and if you move them really far apart, it'll be a really slow, gradual kind of increase into it. So probably about 1 second might actually be decent for this. So that looks alright. The blurriness could probably actually go up a little bit. Let's try about 150, just double that. I see, that looks a lot nicer. So there we go. Got a nice little blur and fade in. And then obviously we want to repeat something similar whenever we're coming out. So the clip here is 5 seconds, so we'll go about a second in. Create a keyframe with 0 blurriness, and then go towards the last frame and put that up again. The whatever you want. I'm going to jack it to 200. And then here on opacity, you're going to create a keyframe here so we can fade this out too. And then just before this blur keyframe, I'm going to drop in an opacity keyframe and drop that down to 0. So the reason I do it just before is so that it disappears and there's still some sort of animation happening with the text. So we watch that all now. And it disappears. And that's grand. That's fine. So I'll widen that up so I can see the whole thing. Okay, now it's just, I mean, not much is going on. So if we create a keyframe at the start on scale, and then go to the end, and then change this to about 115, what this will do is, as the time progresses, that will move towards the camera, and it'll always kind of just adds that extra bit of life or whatever to the title sequence. You can make that go bigger if you want. It's and have it almost come right up off the screen, but anyway, maybe 110, 115 is probably enough. And as you can see here, we've created a keyframe where we weren't supposed to create a keyframe. So wherever this scrubber is, if you then change keyframe value, even if one of these is selected, it will just create a new keyframe wherever you are. So select both those, delete that, go to the end, and we'll change that back to 110. We'll watch that, and we've got a nice little kind of blur, fade, and a little bit of movement going on there as well. Okay, so the good thing about these are we can just change fonts, change whatever we want. So I've gone in, changed the font, maybe something a little bit more appropriate for what I'm doing. Just a little bit thinner font, kind of looks a little bit nicer maybe. But yeah, that's pretty much that. So there we go. Nice, cinematic, simple, and you're done. But if you don't want to make that over and over again, select your title, your text layer, make there up the graphics and titles in the menu, and export as motion graphics template. And go in here, you can call it whatever you want. We can call this blur fade title. Select wherever it is you want to install it or save it, and then just hit OK. Okay, so I've removed the text layer, but we've exported the previous settings. We go to Essential Graphics, hit this little install motion graphics template icon, blur fade title .mogrt or mogurt, I think is how people call them. And there we go. Now it just shows up in your Essential Graphics, and you can just click and drag this and drop it onto your timeline anywhere, and it automatically comes in with your text. You can double click on the text and replace it, and it will keep the exact same blur, fade, all the rest of it. And that's it. So that's how you create a nice, simple, cinematic title animation, and then export it to use it again, anytime you want. That's it. Good job. See you next time.